Hello everybody, how are you guys? It's time for another movie review, and this one is going to be a fun one. It's Angry Birds 2, and it's coming out soon. So let's talk about what it's all about, and maybe you can determine if it's something that you want to see with your date, with your family, your friends, perhaps even your pastor. So Angry Birds 2, what do they tell you when you go to the park? Okay, don't feed the birds. What does everybody do? They feed the birds. It's not good for ducks, it's not good for geese, it's not good for any of the bird wildlife when we feed them. Now, it's kind of irresistible though, because especially if you have kids, what what happens when you throw bread onto the water of the pond? The birds come over, the ducks come over. Well, kids love that stuff. Kids love it. And you're like, look at the geese, look at the ducks, and the ducks are not only just one comes over, sometimes 10, 12, 50 ducks, and that makes little kids go crazy with happiness. So frankly, I understand, but what happens is it can injure the birds, and more importantly, it can lead to changes in their natural behavior. Their natural behavior of the bird wildlife changes, and that is the focus of this movie, Angry Birds. They start to lose their minds because they're eating too much bread, pretzels, candy, even gum. I've seen geese chewing gum and blowing bubbles. Swans, guys, you haven't lived till you've seen a swan chewing gum and blowing bubbles with bubble gum that they got from some knucklehead at the park. But this movie explores what happens when the nature comes to a point where things get out of control and the birds lose their minds from eating all this junk food. Why are you feeding Trix to the birds? Why are you feeding Captain Crunch to the birds? Why are you giving them chocolate donuts? First of all, it just makes them fat. Okay? Have you ever seen a super fat goose? I don't mean a plump goose. I mean a goose that's 4 or 5 times the size from eating chocolate donuts. They can barely swim around the pond, and then they kind of list. Have you ever noticed they're a little bit wobbly, and the reason is they're trying to balance their weight to get some kind of equilibrium. Well, again, this movie takes it to the next level, and the birds attack the city. We don't know what city it is. It's a generic city, but the birds now infiltrate the entire lives of this nearby city. Okay? They go into business meetings and they sit at the board. They sit in the sales meetings. You know where they have that speakerphone in the middle, and they've got New York on the phone, Paris, London, Toronto, and everybody's going over their results for the quarter. Well, now the geese are sitting at the table and they're speaking up and they're making up baloney. They're making up their own numbers. They didn't achieve those sales goals, but they are crazed, all right? They're flying into schools and they're hitting the fire alarm. They're hitting the fire alarms and making the kids leave because and what happens when you're a kid? You've got to go in formation, line up here, and what happens? You walk right under the alarm. There's nothing louder in a school than the damn fire alarm. Why do they make you walk under it? Why don't we just crawl out the window? Because then we don't have to walk under that dang fire alarm. But what are those little nicks in the paint? That's from a bird using his beak to pull on, to try to get the beak in there, and then they leverage it, and then before it snaps back real quick, they yank it down, and the fire alarm goes off, and the kid is like 10 years old, he's losing his hearing, all right? He hasn't even been to a rock concert yet, and he's lost his hearing because of the dang fire alarm. Okay, we get it. It's a fire alarm. Bring it down like 25% decibels, okay? We can hear it. We're kids. We can hear everything. Kids can hear for like 3 miles. They're like dogs. Unbelievable. So here you have these birds flying into the daily life of the citizens of this city, generic city, going into the grocery stores, and as people are pushing their carts down the aisle, they're flying in formation and throwing stuff with their beak into the carts. And the people pushing the carts are like, hey, I didn't want this stuff. I don't want corn-fed beef. Okay, I don't want generic apples. I wanted organic apples. So all of their personal selections, all their personal choices have gone by the wayside as these birds fly like they look like they're in form, like they look like, it looks like airplanes, and throwing stuff off of the shelves into carts, and people are, steering, they're trying, and sometimes they have a little kid that sits in the cart, those snotty little kids usually, like, I want this, I want that, and the mom's like, you can't have that, you can't be eating licorice for breakfast, but the kid's like, I want that, right? And you're shopping next to them, and you're like, man, that kid is making me crazy. I don't even know this kid. That kid and that parent. Well, now the birds are throwing all kinds of stuff into the cart. It's covering the kid. There's so many things in the cart. It's covering the kid, and he's inside there, and he's like, Mom, I can't see, because there's canned goods, and there's meat, and there's bread, and there's cupcakes, and all kinds of foodstuffs around the kid, and he's sitting in the cart. He's like, Mom, I can't see. Well, the mom has hit the deck, right? She's taking cover. I mean, it's not that she doesn't care about the kid, but she can see that if it's kind of like in the airplane, you're supposed to put the mask on yourself and then the child. The mom thinks, well, I better duck under the meat counter, because if this is some kind of bird revolt, I'm not going to be able to help my kid at all if I'm injured or if they take me out. So, guys, it's just a massive bird revolution, and they just come in mass. In fact, it blocks out the sun of these birds coming into the city, infiltrating all aspects of daily life, just because you had to give the bird some whole wheat bread, because you had to give the bird some sour cream and onions potato chips at the park because your kid loved it. Well, there was a sign there. You saw the sign. Don't feed the birds. It alters their natural behavior and makes them fat. Okay, so these are just the younger, leaner birds that are flying into the city to take over. But they're all coming. The ones that are too fat because you made them fat that can't fly, they're on foot. They're on foot on the interstate, okay? Hundreds, thousands, millions of birds waddling into town because they're so fat they can't fly, and they're mad. They don't have the wherewithal to determine what's their best diet. You throw down a chocolate donut in the pond, they're gonna eat it. But now they're too fat to fly, and they're coming back for revenge. They're coming back for you. Check it out. Angry Birds 2. They're birds, and they're angry.